And we begin first up with the latest statements coming in from Netanyahu, who has hailed a historic victory in his country's 12-day war against Iran. He has pledged to prevent Tehran rebuilding its nuclear facilities. This was a televised address to the nation after the start of a ceasefire agreed to by both countries. Netanyahu said that Israel has achieved historic victory and thwarted Iran's nuclear project, and that if anyone in Iran tries to rebuild it, Israel will act with the same determination, with the same intensity to foil any attempt.
During the 12 days of the Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will stand for generations. We removed from upon us two immediate existential threats: the threat of annihilation by nuclear bombs and the threat of annihilation by 20,000 ballistic missiles. If we had not acted now, the state of Israel would soon be facing the danger of annihilation.
Earlier, the head of Israel's military had said that its strikes had set back Iran's nuclear program by years, and that the campaign against the country was now entering a new phase. Israel's military chief further said that his country's focus will now shift back to its fight against Palestinian militant group, that is Hamas, in Gaza, and to bring back the hostages. Meanwhile, in Gaza, the Civil Defense Agency said that Israeli forces killed another 46 people who were waiting for aid in the territory. The statement is significant as it comes after United Nations agency slammed the food distribution system in the region. In fact, Civil Defense spokesman said that an Israeli fire near an aid point in central region killed 21 people and wounded 150 others. He added that 25 other people were killed in another incident in South Gaza. And joining us to discuss this further is Giorgio Cefero. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's professor at Georgetown University and CEO Gulf State Analytics. Mr. Cefero, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. Quickly quoting the statement that's coming in from the Iranian president, who says that the country is not seeking nuclear weapons but will defend its right to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. How do you read into this? And does this mean that Iran-US talks are now in the offing?
Yeah, thank you for having me on your program. I have to say that at this point, I would have a difficult time imagining Iran coming back to the negotiating table anytime soon. Iran did signal its willingness to speak to the Americans and to make concessions to the West. And Iran took part in 5 rounds of negotiations under Omani auspices in Muscat and Rome. And what that led to was Israel waging an unprovoked war on Iran with a green light from the White House, and the Israelis killing the nuclear negotiators. So I think those in Iran who have been making the case that nothing good comes from engaging the United States diplomatically, well, those people have arguments and opinions that are now much more widespread throughout Iranian society. I see the regime in Tehran now having to contend with bottom-up pressure from society and growing demands for the country to become a nuclear-armed state. Those who argue that Iran will need nuclear deterrence to prevent foreign countries from attacking Iran, they have an upper hand in the debate in Iran right now. Many Iranians fail to see what staying in the NPT is going to do for their security interests.
Mr. Cefero, in continuation to that same point, a 400 kg stockpile of uranium is still unaccounted for after US carried out its airstrikes on those nuclear sites. Could this be a powerful bargaining chip for Iran when the talks happen between Iran and US, talking about particularly this 400 kg stockpile of uranium?
Well, I think your question raises an important point, is that while the U.S. and Israeli military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities have undoubtedly pushed Iran's nuclear program back. I don't know how far. I would assume probably at least a few years. There's no way to, confidently claim that Iran's nuclear program is obliterated.
Yes.
At the same time, let's keep in mind that the Iranian nuclear program also entails nuclear scientists and knowledge that is not knowledge that can't simply be bombed away. Also, my understanding is that the Iranians moved enriched uranium away from the sites they're targeted, so the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program is still in place. All of this is to say that I think the U.S. and Israel are going to continue to see an alleged nuclear threat represented by Iran.
Yes, and this is especially important in context of that statement which came earlier by an Iranian official that they've moved nuclear materials to safer location. But talking about Iran and Israel, having said that this is a conditional truce, and if the other side provokes, there is going to be a retaliation. It literally means that the ceasefire is hanging by a thread.
Well, this ceasefire, which we still don't really know the details. We definitely don't know the details of this ceasefire. It's going to be extremely fragile. I am very suspicious of the U.S. motivations for trying to push these two countries toward this ceasefire. There is a part of me that thinks that this might end up being more of a pause that enables Israel to sort of breathe for a moment, regroup, rearm, re-strategize, and then catch the Iranians off guard later on. At the same time, when we talk about a country or an organization entering a ceasefire with Israel, we have to ask ourselves what that really means. Remember, in November 2024, Lebanon's Hezbollah and Israel entered a ceasefire. Since then, the Israelis have been bombing Lebanon all the time. So I have a feeling that those of us who are suspicious and are skeptical about what this very, very fragile and unclear ceasefire mean are probably going to be proven right, unfortunately. I hope to be wrong about this, but I do not imagine Israeli-Iranian hostilities coming to an end for the long haul. This might be just sort of a temporary pause. So we'll have to see.
Mr. Gafero, how do you see U.S. involvement in this entanglement in the West Asia crisis? That is, if the fighting resumes between Israel and Iran.
I'm inclined to think that Trump wants to keep the United States out of a protracted war in the Middle East. I think he is trying to focus more on countering China and therefore doesn't want the U.S. bogged down in some costly quagmire, a no-win war in the Middle East that costs America a lot in terms of blood and treasure. However, I think if Israel is to resume hostilities against Iran, I would assume the Trump administration and probably any U.S. administration for that matter, would give Tel Aviv unconditional support.
Also, Mr. Gafero, Trump says that China can now buy Iranian oil after Israel-Iran ceasefire. A significant statement of sorts, as China remains the primary purchaser of Iranian oil, and China's purchase has even been providing Iran with much-needed critical economic boost. How do you see that go-ahead that's coming in from U.S. When we talk about Iranian oil, which can be purchased by China here on?
It's a good question. This might be a tactic aimed at giving Iran more incentive to abide by terms of a ceasefire. And again, I do not know, and I don't believe anyone in the public knows sort of the terms of the ceasefire. But I think this might just perhaps be a strategy aimed at giving Tehran a little more buy-in to the ceasefire. But we'll have to see.
Lastly, Mr. Gafero, what do you have to say about the coordination, which is clearly not happening between the United Nations nuclear watchdog and Iran when it comes to monitoring the radioactive levels at these nuclear sites that were targeted by the U.S.?
When it comes to the nuclear issue, I really think the Iranians do not trust the IAEA, and I think as a consequence of everything that has happened since the 13th of June, Iran is going to be more clandestine about its nuclear activities and much less transparent with the IAEA. I have to assume that at this point, the Iranian leadership will make a rush for the nuclear bomb. I think they will conclude that this is necessary to deter countries that do have nuclear weapons, such as Israel and the United States, from attacking the Islamic Republic. So that's how I read it.
All right, Mr. Cafero, that's the time we had. Appreciate you talking to WION. So that was Giorgio Cafero giving his insights on what's been happening in Middle East.
Thank you.